each of the 47 county minus 3. In the next couple of months, we should be able to have a budget facilitator in every county. In total number, we now have about 100 budget facilitators across the country. As we come to this graduation today, I really want to take this opportunity to really appreciate each of you and challenge you that regardless of the bus you find or you are given, be the good driver. Because a good driver driving a faulty bus is far much better than a rogue driver driving a new bus.
For me, it's to congratulate everybody who is graduating here and the great team that has supported them. As Uraia Trust, we are very happy and we are glad to have such a strategic partner that is advocating for budget transparency.
I think something unique about this program, the 5th cohort, was that it was not necessarily an open call. So we were targeting counties where we've not had anyone before within the program. So first of all was the concern, are we even going to get someone from there? And especially the northeastern counties, which are often like forgotten. I think for me, what I have noticed even with the facilitators is the resilience in terms of breaking ground when it comes to budget work in those counties where nothing was happening, at least not at a very big scale, compared to counties where this has been happening, you know, for a very long time.
I've really learned a lot. Initially, kwa budget making process, PWDs tulikuwa tunachua sana nyuma. And with the training, tumemanage kutengeneza our disability cost region hub in unit under the hub, na tutaanza kuimplement our activities after Ramadan. Na pia tumemanage pia kusubmit a few memorandums.
Through the training, I gained a lot of knowledge. I didn't know, in fact, before this training, I didn't know a single document, budget document. I didn't know that there was a budget cycle. Nothing, nilikuwa green mbaya. But sasa now through the training, I've been able to gain a lot of knowledge. I know who to engage on what matter. I know when to engage. I know who requires which information. And I'm able now to bring on board my friends, my colleagues, the PWDs, and tell them that this is the direction.
The program has provided a solid foundation, not only in technical content, but also through the practical structure, including the mock session and peer engagement, which have been instrumental in shaping my approach to public finance work. Stepping into the role of a budget facilitator, my next step is to scale this work, amplifying the community voices, mentoring others, and deepening forward to catalyze youth-led advocacy.
Everyone's voice matter, and sometimes we have these groups of people who are left behind whenever we are advocating for our needs, and it's very essential for us to include them in the work that we are currently doing.
At a personal level, being given that I am a person with visual impairment, interacting with the documents, analyzing has been a challenge, and therefore, it calls for me having somebody close to me, so that I'm able now to go through them and do the necessary analysis.
When one of our facilitators who's visually impaired joined us, we had to go back to the drawing board in terms of we have these training materials. They are all in hard copy, but we also want him to actively participate and take part in the activities, the classroom activities that we are doing and all that. And so we had to take the materials we are giving other participants in hard copy and ask him what would be the preferred mode of delivery. How do you prefer to receive or to access such materials? And we actually printed the training materials in Braille.
By the time we got to cohort 5, then we had a bit more persons from such marginalized groups that then applied for the program. And we feel that has also improved the quality of how we do the trainings and how budget materials are developed, how they are applied, and how they can reach more people beyond just the usual culprit.
One of the stories that have really impacted me and my county, Vihiga, was we had an advocacy on comprehensiveness of the budget documents that included the budget directors, CCM Finance, chief officer, and the people in the executive office, including the county assembly. After this meeting, after this lobbying with them on the comprehensiveness of these documents, the next document that was to be looked into was the CBROP. And it really came as a big impact where the government invited CCM Finances for this public participation, and it was also made public, and public views were requested for, and even in the website we had a whole advertisement seeking for public views on CBROP. And during this public participation, people got to engage deeply with the CCMs of different sectors, like the agriculture sector, the youth sector. The health sector didn't make it, but 5 whole CCMs came, and it was really engaging. And from there, we've seen a significant improvement on the comprehensiveness of our budget documents, and it is a plus for us, for we get to have more information that we are looking for in the documents.
For us as Budgeti Hub, that we've actually done a training that has brought on board at least one budget facilitator from all the 47 counties. That was the first goal, was to cover the whole country. Right? Numerically, just make sure we have a budget facilitator in each of the counties. But secondly, one of the big lessons also we've learned is that it's quite common to get Kenyans talking about challenges they are facing in their counties, in their wards, in their villages and their communities. But also that has been the place that has really helped to get the kind of capacity that people get from this program to connect to the real needs of people.
The knowledge that we got here and having evidence advocacy has really improved that come after advocacy.
That I have been able to increase my knowledge in terms of how do I engage the communities and the government throughout the planning and budgeting processes.
There is a revolution that Budgeti Hub has brought. The generation that knows what budget is, what are budget processes, what are these key documents that you need to participate. So I can say that is what it has transformed. It has transformed also in social, in a social. A proposal, but I need to express myself.
It has been an opportunity for me to also engage with the budget processes as a citizen of Nyandarua County.
Stories of impact have been many and diverse. And the number of people who tell us, even who we did not know, that we've worked with your budget facilitators, we've worked with your budget champions, I think vindicates one area where we thought they will become a resource for others as well. So there's a lot of benefits that have come from this program that go even beyond what we anticipated with the initial objectives.
This has been quite fulfilling experience. I have learned a lot in terms of what happens in some of the 22 counties that we have interacted with the individuals from there. And I am really confident that what we have done over the last year and leading into this year, 2025, is going to result into something great for our country. Yeah, at some point we look back and say, there was a point in time where it seemed like we were making very small steps, but we are now somewhere.
The beauty of working in teamwork, and that is through the budget champions that we were engaging. So as a facilitator, getting the capacity build and also engaging other people, it makes the results to be more compact and collective, because the PFM space is not a loner space. It is not a one-man show. It is calls for collective efforts.
Since I was trained back in 2016-17 financial year, I've seen value of my work increasing by day, especially how the stakeholders respond. The communities have, taken the civic actions or even taken their responsibility more seriously. Now getting, to understand what happens behind the scenes in terms of those budget decisions. At the same time, government taking us more seriously because they see us backing our propositions with, information from budget documents, with data, and that helps to solidify our propositions in budget, in terms of budget, in the budget decisions.
The training is just one step. Working with these budget facilitators after the training, including them as researchers in the researches that we are doing analysis together through the regional budget hubs. That has also created a profile of credibility for the work that they do, but secondly has given us an avenue of continuing to improve and learn together with the capacity that they already had just from the training. That the materials have to be relevant, have to be contextualized to now, and that it must be open to improvement over time. But that improvement has come from very many quarters. It's come from, our own work has come from the budget facilitators and budget champions. It's come from what we are learning as the laws have changed, as new laws have come on board. And also it has come from a lot of things that also we borrow from what is happening around the world. It's really content that is developed for a very local context, but it has a very global view as well.
But you see how the program is structured is such that we're not just training you. In a way, we are also training your communities or your organizations through you, because there's a requirement that once you have been trained, then you will pass this knowledge down to other people.
The people you engage with, ensure you empower them enough to be able to carry on the work.
Way forward is just empowering more people, educating more people, bringing up more champions so that I don't have to do it by myself, but we have to do it separately, but together.
To leverage on any meetings and where PWDs will be engaged, even more than I have done before, so that I can continue the same gospel.
The PWDs and generally people who champion for inclusivity say nothing for us without us. We'll all co-create strategies that will enhance inclusivity and equity in budget decision making.
And I'm hoping that as they go into such spaces, they will be opening doors for their budget champions to come in, for their CSO networks to come in. But really what we've developed here is a pipeline of creating thought leadership in PFM beyond just community facilitators. And I'm really proud that that is something that is panning out in many of these counties.
And that we are here to support them. The regional hubs are here to support them, Budget Hub is still here to support them, and we are keen to see them prosper, not just for what is in it for them as individuals, but also for what is in it for them and their communities and their counties, but also for our nation.
Is to say congratulations and we celebrate you for choosing to be part of this program. Each of you has said ilikuwa ngumu, ilikuwa rigorous, there was Carol, there were so many other things. So you chose to continue with the rigorous program for the 9 months, and we hope that you'll keep doing what you're doing. And I want to request all the phenomenal women in this room to come to the front so that then we can be able to cut this cake. Congratulations!
Show me the way I can go, take me by the end. Show me the way.
Good morning. I feel inclined to mention that breakfast is still outside there by the level of that good morning response. So if you're here to get a cup of coffee or tea, please do so. But I would like to cordially invite all of us to the launch of the County Budget Transparency Survey. On behalf of Bajeti Hub and the entire team at Bajeti Hub, karibuni sana. We are really glad you could join us this Friday morning. And just to acknowledge that all the county governments that are present in the room today, from the executive to the assemblies and all the delegations from the county governments. Also just to acknowledge the development partners who are here with us today, the civil society partners who have also joined us today, and really all of us, media. We have media partners, we have private sector, just to say thank you very much, and karibuni, and all of us from all the 47 counties, all the way from the Rift to the coast, from the northeastern region to the western region, the lake, and the central, the Nairobi metropolitan area. I know all those regions at the very least are represented here. And just to make this a little bit more personal, I'll give us a minute or two for you to know who's seated next to you. If you're not an extrovert, I know perhaps you have not yet even looked at who's seated beside you. So take a minute and just see who's that person seated next to you, and network a bit. Online via Zoom webinar. You are very much welcome as well, and thanks to technology you get to be part of what is happening in this room. We also have language interpreters, and we'll be having see them on the screen bottom right, depending on how you're viewing it. And we have Vila and Sylvia doing the sign language interpretation. So I'll request those like me who get a chance to come on this podium to also speak at a pace that will allow our sign language interpreters to be able to do the interpretation. I will also introduce myself. My name is Faith Ankinandri. I work at Bajeti Hub as the program officer and the lead our capacity development work. I will be introducing my co-moderator. I have a co-moderator today in a minute. But before I do that, I would like to officially open the meeting. And we'll do that by singing the national anthem. We'll sing 3 stanzas of the Kenyan national anthem and 1 stanza of the East African anthem. So may I request that we stand for the anthem.
Amen.
Thank you very much, Unity Inclusive. So I mentioned at the beginning that we are here for the launch of the County Budget Transparency Survey. So that is the main reason we are here today. But if you're new to this, or this is your very first time interacting with either Budgeti Hub, or you just saw an invite, or even for those who are joining us online, and perhaps you came across a link on LinkedIn or any other social media and you decided, you know what, I'm not doing a lot of things this Friday morning, so let me see what these people are all about. And in the morning I got to speak to a few of us and I asked them, why are you here today? What has motivated you to leave everything that you're a part of, what you're doing, and join this meeting? And of course, the responses ranged from, we were invited, so we came, and as Budgeti Hub, we appreciate that, to we want to see how our county performed when it comes to budget transparency compared to other counties, to networking, to meeting other like-minded individuals. So there are very many reasons why most of us are in this room today. But one of the things that we hope all of us have at the back of our minds and that we do not necessarily forget is, and is central to the meeting today, that is budget transparency. Budget transparency, we believe and have seen at Budgeti Hub, and I know most of our partners here can attest to this, is very central to budget advocacy work and public finance management, PFM in general. And that is because it serves as a critical enabler of very many other components and aspects of public finance management. You know, when you talk about public participation, public engagement, if you may, when we talk about equity and inclusion in resource allocation, and there are very many other things, the list could go on. But budget transparency itself, and something that I hope we think about even as the presentations here are made, as various remarks are made on this stage, as you interact with various people from other organizations, counties, and so on, is the aspect, or rather is the fact that budget transparency is also very layered, right? So in terms of, first, who has access to information? What kind of information do they have access to? Where do they access this information? At what point are they able to access this information? How are they able to access this information? And when you talk about how the point is, rather when you talk about who, the point is that everyone should be able to access public information. In this context, we're talking about public finance management, information on budget information. right? And that is across all categories. So how accessibility looks like to me may not be the same way accessibility looks like for someone who's visually impaired. And so then that matters in terms of access, because I may have the document and I can access it, but how accessibility looks like for them might be a bit different. So and even if that document is there, or that information is there, and they cannot be able to make sense of what that information is, then there are still challenges with accessibility when it comes to that. In terms of what kind of information, and that is something that I know will be spoken about here at length, in terms of the extent to which the level of comprehensiveness and all that. In terms of where they're able to access this information, that is also another critical factor. Do I know where I am able to get that information from? One of the sadly fulfilling things that I have experienced as a trainer when it comes to PFM in this space is when people are very surprised when they realize they can access budget documents on the National Treasury's website. First of all, surprised that there is even a National Treasury's website, and two, that there are budget documents there with financial information about this country that you can access, read, and see what the government proposes or what they have approved. So that is, the where is very important as well. And I would say that also speaks to the how. Speaking of information, knowledge, and all that, I'd like us to do a little bit of exercise. So first of all, one that is reflective. I also lead the Learning Market Budget Hub, and reflection is part and parcel of what we do. So I'd like us to do that briefly. But before we get into that, allow me to introduce my co-moderator who will be helping us. We'll be doing this together, taking us through this very interesting session, or so we think. We hope you'll be able to experience the same during and after this session and declare that it's interesting. But allow me to introduce Kip Korir Biegon. You have seen him before on this podium, and he's also here again in different capacity. Karibu sana Kip, you can introduce yourself.
Thank you, Fidan. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kip Korir Biegon, and I lead Society Work at Budget Hub. And of course, I'm really glad to be here, and I'm happy to see all of you. And you are just open budgets transformed lives, which we have always known. And we are happy to take you to this session together with
Thank you very much, Kip. At this point, we'd like to request the media team to project on screen something we call, if you've interacted with Budget Hub, we call it Menti or Mentimeter. So Kip will guide us through how you go about accessing this on your phone or laptop.
Yes. So I want you first, of course, you have to have internet. If you don't have internet, I know that the hotel has, so you can just try to put Wi-Fi where to lock it. But if you have internet, you can be able to find this. So you go to Google, your browser, any browser that you have, then just write menti.com. And I know that most of us probably, it's not very your first time probably directing that site. So menti.com, if you, I want us to be on the same page, all of us, so that we can be able to follow through together. So menti.com, if you are not there, you can be assisted. You can just raise your hand, that can be assisted. And there's a code. There's a code that is the screen. That's 589265837. So you just put that code, then you'll be able to see the question. And the question is, in one word, what does budget transparency mean or look like for you? Yes, this could relate to your work, personal life, or challenges because that you are trying to address in the community. If you are covering visual, it still means something for you. I hope everyone is there. The code is 8926 5837. 89265837. I see there are quite a number of responses that are coming, and I hope everyone is able to put your voice to count that slide.
Okay. What does budget transparency mean or look like for you?
Yes. For me, I think budget transparency means life. And I have been was the journey of this budget transparency for quite some time. And I have seen the way it has been started many of us. Like, it started conversations, it started basic, like something like basic, but it's very important. It's like a wheel that you are able to use to move to another door, or just trying to open the doors for you. Because remember, without transparency, without budgets being open, you cannot be able to do much. And for me, as a researcher, I have, because showed my first point which I interacted with, like document, get numbers, to analyze, and you're going to use that. And I hope it also means something for you when we to community, those who will take up this crowd there. So of course I know it means something for you. But basically for me, it means that. And of course, I've been privileged to see the journeys that we have seen, which we will present at some point. Thank you.
Thank you, Kip. And for me, I think I agree with one of the most prominent words there, accountability. That is what budget transparency means. I have seen others, openness, accessibility, and a whole range of words on what budget transparency means for each of us. And I like what Kip has said. At the bottom, at the core of it is life. Because if we look at service delivery and services, that is the entire goal of what we are doing, especially in this kind of work. We'll move to the second question. So the presenter will click next slide. And you will also see on your screen, presenter has moved to the next slide, or perhaps is already there. What are your thoughts on the state of budget transparency at the subnational county level? Your random initial thoughts, you perhaps have not interacted with the survey.
Is someone saying improvement? Because you do look at that. And I know you are also able to see, of course, some of us might have seen the previous reports that we have launched here. And we will see progresses. Someone is saying poor. When you say poor, because it also comes with everyone. What probably I'm not getting it right. Someone saying better. One thing was, we will be able to see those dynamics.
There are some few positive ones. I am trying to find the positive ones in the midst of all this. I see better. It's improving day by day. Fair progress. Maybe we can scroll and see the ones that are coming in. Okay, so there is still fair progress. Okay, I think we can give it 50-50. That is my very uninformed, biased judgment. That 50% of us feel like it's on this other extreme, 50% of us feel like it's on the other extreme in terms of good, but there's also some neutral ground there, and some very interesting responses there that I will not mention. So the good thing is that we have all these things that we're thinking about when it comes to how budget transparency looks like. And it's a good thing you're in this room today, because we also get the factual information, figures and all that, and data and evidence on the state of budget transparency at the subnational level. But at this point, now that we've done that reflection, we want to see, we're saying this is the state, but what do we really know about, the public finance management context, the county governments, the budget documents, and PFM in general, and even current affairs. So what is going to happen is we have a very brief quiz. And because we like to make things fun, we actually have gifts for those who are going to do really well. So best foot forward, first fingers win. Those are the rules of the game. So the next slide that comes on, and I'll ask the media team to take us to the next slide. You will see a prompt to put in your name. Put in a name that is unique to you, kindly, and one that it doesn't have to be a real name, but at least chances will be that you're the only person with that name, because we actually want to see who the winner is. So you can just, when we'll allow most of us to get there, I see 80 players are ready. And I hope you have put in your name. So that is what that slide is prompting you.
Don't miss this.
Keith was the examiner in this one. So if the questions are hard, I'm trying to see if there are people who are still keying their names. We are at 22 players. Online team, you can also participate.
Remember, first, it should us time, so it's such a conflict. And the question is only 15 seconds. So you delay, you will not be rejected.
In short, do not overthink. 15 seconds. The first answer that comes to your mind, but it's multiple choice. Okay. We are getting ready. Look at your device. Start.
What edition of comparative survey is still the survey?
One second.
And there we have this.
Range of answers. Most people have said 4th edition. I want to report to Nambiana. Were we looking at what our neighbors are saying? I'm curious about the 4th edition. How many are 100% sure it's the 4th edition? You can raise your hand with certainty. If I raise their hand,
and that options. What edition, in edition, the decision?
So there is the right answer. The answer is ticked. You can see. Kip, do you want to explain why it's the 10th edition?
When did you start to come to budget and survey? And we have been, like, it has been about 10 years. So from 2015, we have done this survey. But what happened in 2020, that probably could have been formed by some of us might have said 4th edition, but this is the 5th, could have been the 5th in the WFP and comprehensiveness. But we started this journey in 2015, we did availability from 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. Then from 2020 we were able to do the availability and comprehensiveness, which will be explained at some point when the transition will be done, just to differentiate the availability component and comprehensiveness component. So it's the 10th edition of Concrete and Survey.
I feel like that's a good place to applaud. 10 years. So move to the next slide, and the next slide will show us the scores, where you are at. So Kenya is leading. Kenya was the fastest. Who is Kenya? Okay. But there's 6 more questions to go. I hope you keep it up. So it's between Kenya, King Kong, and Jeremiah. All right, next question.
Question number 2.
So we'd like for most of us to get to that slide.
your seats are ready. Okay. So 110 is good. We'll get to the question.
Countdown. What are key budget, key components in the survey 2024?
What are the key components? If you listened to me at the beginning, you should get this. Wow, okay. I can see a lot of budget facilitators and champions in this. Clearly, this one was a very easy question. So 58 got it right. Availability and comprehensiveness. But we have some people who have quite some. The second one there is timeliness and comprehensiveness. But for the 2024 survey, it's just availability and comprehensiveness. But progressively, we are also keen to try and see whether these documents are made available in good time. So maybe the next time or in the next 2 or 3 years, we'll be talking about timeliness as a key component as well. Next question.
Remember, all the documents are as required by public finance management to develop calculations. Question number 3 is coming.
Look at your device. Which of the following is not a county budget document? County budget document. Which of the following is not a county budget document?
Quarterly economic and budgetary review.
These questions were easy, Kim. I feel like these questions were too easy for these crowds.
But I think someone has said, a program is budget, it's not a county document. We would have loved to get to hear from you, but because of time, but because the right answer is the one which most of us have been able to get. So it's document that is produced by National Treasury. It's similar because it also have the information on the quarter, the performance of the quarter.
And counties also have finance acts because I saw quite 29 people said finance act. So move to the next slide. So this is just the leaderboard. Kenya is still somewhere there. I wonder who Kenya is.
Jeremy, make sure you Kenya.
All right. Next question.
This question number 4 still have 3 more.
First finger. Which of the following is not a source of the budget documents assessed in the county budget transparency survey? Which is not a source of the budget documents that we assess in the county budget transparency survey?
This is also another easy question.
We are very good examiners. So yeah, you're right. Majority right. KIPRA is the website is not a source, but we do look at the county assembly's website, the county executive website, and the budgetier portals hosted by the National Treasury. So we'll move to the next question.
To questions?
Okay, next question. Kenya is still leading.
Question number 5. There is still a chance for you to win. You are yes, the screen. Which budget document should currently be under consideration in the session?
By currently, we mean now, like right now, this very moment. Okay, we are very correct there. The program-based budget, so the proposed program-based budget is currently under consideration in the county assembly, and that follows the county fiscal strategy paper and of course the annual development plan which precedes the county fiscal strategy paper. Okay, some shifts there in 2, 3, 4, but number 1 is solid. Next question.
Question number 6. Now when you're reaching the results are almost.
You know, we are 115 players, but only top 10 do we get to see.
When shift to that portal, when the individual reports be made publicly available. So the first March, first April, 15 April, 30 April, 15 May. Yeah, so you see, most of us content it's made public by like a month later or 30 days after the end of the quarter. Because the first March is when the quarter ends, then it's celebrated 1 month later.
That is actually good that most of us are in the majority, which is the correct answer.
But of course, we will find what happens on 15th May. Kenya, you have to defend your. You have to defend Kenya. Because you have been the first one to 1-5.
Final question. This is the deciding question. So be ready. This is the final question.
Question number 7. Last question. Your screen. And the draft preliminary finance shared with Thomas. Yes or no? And 5 say yes. And for the county budget transparency survey, we share the results, draft results with counties, and this we have done this from 2017, and we are still doing. And we have seen those changes that have happened as a result of that. We have also seen counties questioning about the survey.
Right. And finally, should we have drum rolls to the winner of this very easy quiz? We want to know who you are. In as much as your name is Kingo, we want to know who you are.
But we will have to open the server. We have to be very sure.
Was King Kong?
No, not you too.
Hey! Position 2. We'll go back to our leaderboard.
Remember here was you have to be the fastest. So King was the fastest that case. Because everybody you might have gotten this, but it took longer time than the first person.
So we'll go back to the Menti leaderboard for positions 2 and 3. Okay, so position 2 is TCSG. Who's TCSG? And Kenya, the one who had defended. So we have gifts for you. We were very certain about that. So we have gifts for you, and we'll ask Nyama to bring the gifts for position 1, 2, and 3. And just because we are nice people and fun, and we are trying to go against the mold of what H44 told us about ranking, that you only gift position 1, 2, and 3. We're going to gift position 4 as well. So position 4 was, if you can see the leaderboard. We are the examiners. So position 4 was in Swahili. To come to the front so we can gift you.
Kenya.
We'll start with position 4 and 3.
Position 4.
4 and 3, please come onto the stage for your gifts. You defended your position unsuccessfully. And finally, 1 and 2. 1 and 2. We have some very beautiful flasks for you, branded Bajeti Hub. Congratulations to all the winners, and thank you for being very good competitors, and for all of you for being a good sport. Those might have arguably been the most tense awards of this morning, but it doesn't end there. So thank you for indulging us in this session, and we hope you can judge that we were not overstating when we said that it was going to be an interesting session. So you can clap for us. So at this point, we'd like to move to another bit, and perhaps even the core of why we are here today. And I remember last year I stood here and I invited Mr. Kipkorir Biegon to bring the results, much awaited results of how, counties are performing when it comes to budget transparency. And maybe you might be wondering, this Bajeti Hub people, they have decided that Kipkorir will moderate and he will also share the presentation and speak about the results. We are not very bad people. We will not, we promise you we are not trying to overwork him. There's a reason why he's standing here today. And he will actually be the one who's bringing on, who will be presenting the findings for us for this CBTS 2024. For a long time, this is the face we have seen. But there is always a very good succession plan in Budget Hub. And so keep career. Please invite the person who will be bringing the
Ladies and gentlemen, because I've been starting the last forums of survey here, but today we are going to bring in someone who will be able to disclose the findings. Because someone asked me in the morning when I was just getting in that because it's going to see me present the findings. I am really happy to bring in a gentleman called Cuba Hafton. He's a visionary gentleman. I know you have seen him was song Fixing the Nation, Sayang, and because he also challenges us, he drives in a challenging environment, which was a privilege to work with him at Facilitator, because learn a lot from him. He's also a very creative guy, and I'm really happy to invite you.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. My name is Cuba Houghton. I'm the Assistant Programs Officer for Research and Communications at Budget Hub, and now the anointed CBTS guy. And it's really an honor for me to be able to make this presentation in front of you today. Like we mentioned, for the past 4 years, it's been Kip, and now it's another tall gentleman who's making the presentation. So it's really an honor to be here for you today. So my job here today is to present the findings of the CBTS 2024, which is the combination of months and months and many hours of hard work of the people in this room and beyond. So as I read this 20 to 30 minute presentation, this is the combination of many months of work. So today we aim to answer 3 questions with this presentation. Why is county budget transparency important? How has it changed over time? And why? There we go. So let's start with the basics. The County Budget Transparency Survey is an annual independent survey that measures the level of budget information provided by all 47 county governments in Kenya, as is required by law. And the specific laws we refer to, as Kip referred to earlier, is the Constitution of Kenya of 2010, the Public Finance Management Act of 2012 and its accompanying regulations, as well as the County Government Act. To break that down a bit, there's some 4 basic principles that have governed how we've done the CBTS for the past 5 years. One is that it's simple. The survey only evaluates what is required by law, nothing more, as much as we also highlight good practice. It's also collaborative, so it's not just done by the 14 staff members at Budget Hub, but it's done by 36 independent county-based researchers, many of which are in the room, hopefully all are in the room, and with the participation of county governments as well, who are also in the room. It's also fair. It's applied comparatively and equally across all 47 county governments without exception. And finally, it is open and verifiable. The raw data that we generate from the survey each year for the last 5 years is publicly available, and the results are also shared with county governments, again collaborative, before the survey is finished for their review. So we can move to the next slide. The survey methodology has comprises two key steps. It's a simple process, but quite complex. The first is the availability stage. So the availability stage looks at the availability of 10 key budget documents this year from the financial year 2023-2024 that must be produced, published, and publicized on official county websites. The second stage is the comprehensiveness stage, and this assesses the comprehensiveness of 7 of these 10 budget documents using 81 indicators provided by law. And these indicators, or these questions, as the researchers in the room and reviewers know, are grouped into thematic areas. Now think of these thematic areas as types of information. So we have thematic area on public participation, information and expenditure, non-financial information, among others. And we'll talk a bit more about that soon. So what are some of the budget documents that we assess in the survey? Again, we mentioned 10. That's the County Budget Review and Outlook paper, the Annual Development Plan, the County Fiscal Strategy paper, the Approved Program-Based Budget, the Citizen Budget, or Mwananchi Budget, the Finance Act, and the Quarterly Implementation Reports, all 4 of them. But we also recognize that some information is contained, particularly on public participation, outside these 10 documents. So we also evaluate the public participation reports for the County Fiscal Strategy paper, the Annual Development Plan, and the Approved Program-Based Budget as well. So what have we found over the past 5 years? One of the main things is that there's been significant improvement in budget transparency since 2020. But let's break this down. What do we mean by the significant improvement? So this axis, or this graph here, shows the overall transparency score for each of the individual years, average across all counties, from 2020 to 2024 this year. So we first started with around 33 out of 100 points of information in CBTS 2020, just over a quarter. This increased marginally to 35 points of information in 2021, and again by around 6 points to 41 out of 100 points of information. Now, of course, at this point, we're still below half of the information that's required by law. This then moved to 56 points of information out of 100. So this was quite a milestone in CBTS 2023 because now we are above the halfway mark. And coming to CBTS 2024, we can now celebrate that we have 64 out of 100 points of information. Again, quite a milestone. Of course, now we're inching closer to about a quarter of the information that can be, 3/4 of the information that can be provided by county governments in the survey. But what are the drivers of the improvements in budget transparency? We've seen the overall progress in budget transparency over time. But what are the drivers of this progress? Of course, we mentioned availability and comprehensiveness as 2 key components of the survey. So let's look at how they've transformed over time. So one thing that we noticed over the last 5 years is that there has been great progress in the availability or the number of budget documents that county governments are making available. And that's shown by this graph. This shows the trends in the proportion of expected budget documents that county governments have been making available over the past 5 years. In CBTS 2020, that was 32%. So county governments only made available 32% of documents that we as citizens, members of the public, can expect. But this has actually risen all the way to 84 out of 100 points of information in CBTS 2024. More documents than ever. Looking a bit more closely into the dynamics behind this, we find that out of the 10 budget documents that were listed, we've seen the most progress in the approval stage and the implementation stage. So that's documents like the approved program-based budget in this middle section here, the approved program-based budget, the Finance Act, the citizen budget as well, and all 4 quarterly implementation reports alongside the County Budget Review and Outlook paper. So this is where we've seen a significant portion of the progress in terms of availability of budget documents. But of course, there's also comprehensiveness. So interestingly, with comprehensiveness, we've seen that there's only modest progress in the quality of information contained in county budget documents. And that's shown by this graph. Sorry, the media team, can we move to the next slide? So this graph shows the average level of comprehensiveness across the different years of the CBTS, from CBTS 2020 to CBTS 2024. It shows us that in CBTS 2020, we had just about 30% of the required information in county budget documents that citizens need according to law. But over time, this has risen progressively towards 38 out of 100 points of information, right? So just over half of the information that's required. And this is quite interesting because what it symbolizes, if we go to the next slide, is that we are moving towards just over half of the information being provided in the comprehensiveness of the county budget documents. But where is this information being provided, and how have the dynamics actually evolved over time? One of the things that we see is that, sorry, if you go back to the previous slide, one of the things that we see is that on the information, on the thematic areas that we mentioned, these are the types of information contained in budget documents. On the different areas assessed, we find that the information has pretty much stagnated or declined in terms of the different areas. So for example, the information that county governments provide in their budget documents on revenue has only risen 4 points in the last 5 years. That's the column in the middle. CBTS 2020, it was 57 out of 100 points, and it's only risen to 61 by about 4 points. Coming to the information on priorities, and particularly on expenditure, we can see that counties are providing the same level of expenditure information in 2024, CBTS 2024, as they did in CBTS 2020. So we see a stagnation over time. And so that explains why there's not been as much progress in the comprehensiveness of information in budget documents. And what this means over time is that while counties are close to publishing 100%, so if we can move to the next slide, while counties are close to publishing 100% of the budget documents that are required by law, they're only able to provide just half of the information that's required in these documents. And what this means is that if we can move to the next slide, is that for county assemblies and members of the public in a county like Turkana, which has the highest child poverty rate in this country, these individuals may not have enough information to hold to account the executive on the provision of social protection services for these impoverished children, or provision of services for primary health care services. But there must be things underlying these trends. What are the nuances in how budget transparency has changed over time? And we'd like to highlight 4 of them. One, and this is may seem quite obvious, at least to the civil society members in the room, is that budget documents need to be made available on time in order to be useful. And one of the things that we've seen in the survey over time is that counties have often published more budget documents after we present them with the findings. Again, the availability stage has 2 steps where we do a full check of county government websites to see the availability of these documents. These results are then shared with the counties in order to provide feedback and perhaps also upload more documents. And this is what we've seen for the past 5 years. As you can see, the column in blue, the bar graphs in blue, that shows the proportion of the expected budget documents that counties make available before we share the findings. The one in dark green shows the proportion after. And we've seen that routinely this has been higher after we've shared the results. For example, if we go back, for example, in CBTS 2024, there's a 26% increase in the number of documents, equivalent to about 126 documents before and after sharing. And while this could be celebrated, on the next slide, as a sign of responsiveness, because requests are being made for budget documents and they're being made available, the lack of these budget documents in the first instance raises a concern on the timely publishing of these documents for them to actually be useful for public participation, among other engagements, and that's both to the county assembly and the members of the public. So it's a key enabler for public participation. Another finding is that more budget documents does not always translate into more budget transparency. And one of the things we found in the survey, in the 2024 survey, so the latest survey, is that there's been a moderate and positive correlation between the availability of budget documents and comprehensiveness, and their comprehensiveness. And for those of us who hate math, this indicates that there's a higher number of documents, that a higher number of budget documents does not always translate into greater comprehensiveness. So you can release an additional number of documents, but they may have, they may be less comprehensive than previously established. But let's look at an example. Citizen budgets. So citizen budgets, as we may know, are supposed to be simplified versions of approved program-based budgets, right? So these approved program-based budgets are normally hundreds, if not thousands of pages. So the citizen budget is supposed to provide a simplified version of those documents in order to support better understanding and effective decision-making by the public. And what we found in CPTS 2024 is that an increased number of documents actually resulted in a fall in comprehensiveness, and shows this very awkward pyramid structure that you see here. So on the left, you see that the number of counties that publish citizen budgets went from 49% to 70%, an increase, which is positive. But when we looked at the comprehensiveness of those documents that the counties made available, we found that it actually went down from 70% of the information required to 33% of the information. In short, counties produced more but poor quality citizen budgets. And so as much as we are trying to encourage counties to release more budget documents, these documents also need to have the required information for them to actually be useful to the public and for us to actually say that these counties are being transparent. Another finding is that there is nationwide progress in budget transparency, but this could be spread more evenly and could be more consistent. Let's look at some examples of this. So on equity, or rather on the spread of budget transparency, the findings of the CPTS 2024 show that all regional economic blocks have improved in their regional budget transparency score since CPTS 2020, and that's shown by this graph. We're able to see that the columns in gray for all of the different regions that are listed there are lower than the ones in the columns in green, or the green columns. It shows that there's been progress over time. Particularly, there's been progress in the Narok and Kajiado region, if you go back to the previous slide, as well as the Lake Regional Economic Block, where we've seen quite a significant amount of progress, and we'll get into that probably a bit later on. Next, we find on consistency. So this is something that we've tried to celebrate more and more as the survey has moved on progressively. And we found that 6 counties in particular have been consistent in improving their budget transparency score year on year, from CPTS 2020 to CPTS 2024. And these counties are listed here as Narok, Lamu, Busia, Taita Taveta, Siaya, and Nairobi counties. What's interesting about these counties, as you can see, is they're spread across all of Kenya's regions. And one of the things that's important is that they show the possibility of steady progress in budget transparency. It is possible, and these counties are exemplars of this very fact. A third finding that's quite also interesting that we saw with this survey is tends to be a big difference in the comprehensiveness of some budget documents published by counties. So let's look at an example. This example shows the comprehensiveness of county quarterly implementation reports. And what we find is that in CPTS 2024, Makueni County, which had the most comprehensive report, provided 93% of the information, and 93 out of 100 points of information in the quarterly implementation report. This is also quite a feat because this is one of the documents that has actually been struggling in terms of comprehensiveness. But on the other end of the spectrum, we have Elgeyo Marakwet, which actually only provided 9 out of 10, out of 100 points of information, right? And practically, this means that a mother in Elgeyo Marakwet could have less information on how maternal health services are being funded and implemented in her county than one in Makueni. And that's important when you consider that the rates of access to maternal health care services might be different in both of those counties. And so access to this information across the different counties is important as we move towards greater budget transparency across the country. Finally, reporting on public participation remains limited. Now, as Budgeti Hub, we are aware, and practitioners in the room, we are aware that counties conduct public participation. And I think in the past year or so, we've been able to see a lot more effort from county governments and also the national government in conducting public participation. But what we find is that counties are actually struggling to report on this. So the CBTS, as I mentioned earlier, classifies the information collected in each budget document into a number of thematic areas or types of information. One of this is public participation. And what the findings show is that, if you go to the next slide, is that out of 100 possible points of information, out of 100% that counties should provide on public participation, they gave an average of just 12 points in the financial year 2023-2024. That's the orange line in that graph. And as you can see, a majority of counties are actually below that line. And to show the real-world impact of this, if you can go to the next slide. This picture is a picture taken recently of children, school-going children, attending a public participation forum on the approved program-based budget in Wajir County, just about a week ago. And the poor reporting on public participation that we've just showed means that for these school-going children who probably skipped school to attend this public participation forum, as it was during the week, gave their input, but may never know if the input was actually recognized, if their presence was actually recognized, whether the input was recorded, or whether the input ever made an impact on the decision at hand. This is what budget transparency means. But how do we bring this all together? We looked at dynamics, we looked at trends, we looked at numbers, we looked at scales. How do we bring this all together in one coherent way? And one of the things that, if you've been to this current county budget transparency survey before, that we like to do this is through maps. So 2014, of course, is when we had the onset of devolution. And 2015 is when we first started looking into budget transparency and the availability of budget documents online. And I think some of the people who are part of that initial expedition are in the room. I think Jason and John are still here. Thank you for your good efforts. So this is what budget transparency looked like in 2015. As you can see, the country is bleeding. It's mostly red. And remember, at this point, we were looking at just the availability of budget documents. So we can see that a majority of counties actually didn't have many budget documents available online 1 year into devolution. Very little green, very little yellow, a lot of red. If we move to the next slide. Coming to 2020, where we are now 6 years into devolution, we are introducing the comprehensiveness component and the availability component, and we're able to see that there's been some significant progress, right? There's a lot less red, a lot more yellow, a little of green, and a little of blue. So you can just, the next slide slightly, so you can see the performance scale. So basically, the more green and darker green and light blue, the better. So we can see that in 2020, we still had a lot of progress to make, right? Coming to 2022, this is now 8 years into devolution. We did another edition of the survey, and this is what it looked like. Again, significant progress. We're able to see that there's a lot less yellow, a lot more light blue. So that's progress from the D category to the C category. There's also a bit of regress. So before we saw a bit of yellow, but now we see, especially in the northern region, there was quite a bit of, there's quite a bit of red, right? So before there was yellow, now there's a bit of red. Now coming to 2024, if you would kindly give me a drum roll, please. This is the state of budget transparency in 2024. As you can see, a lot of green. And there are a couple of interesting facts about this specific map. One is you'll notice for the first time in the history of the survey, the 10 years that Kip spoke about, we have 3 counties in the A category that scored above 81 out of 100 points of information. That's the dark green ones. Also for the first time in the survey, most of the counties fall in the B category. That's the 61 to 80 out of 100 points of information. That's the majority of the counties. That's the first time this has actually happened in the survey, which shows, again, this nationwide progress towards budget transparency. And before we move on to the next slide, I'd like to just recognize the efforts of everyone in this room in that journey from 2015 to 2024. Because those results did not manifest on their own. There's a lot of effort, there's a lot of meetings, a lot of hotel meetings, a lot of meetings under trees that resulted in that budget transparency and those changes over time from green to red. And I'd just like to take a moment to appreciate that. And I'm sure John will do that a bit more later. But at this point, you may be asking yourselves one question. Why? Why have we seen these trends in transparency over time? We've talked about, okay, we've seen the drivers of the trends, but what are the things that actually practically manifest and affect the trends in budget transparency? Why are some counties more transparent than others? What contributes to the trends in budget transparency? What are the key factors that actually affect or the ability or the motivations for our county to be transparent? So we started with some of these questions about a year and a half ago, and we conducted a study, a qualitative study on a sample of 16 counties that some of us, I believe, were part of. And what we found is there are 3 categories of factors that motivate county governments to be transparent. One is legal, administrative and practical factors, and unsurprisingly, political factors. So I'll just give us a brief of each of these because this is a snippet from one of the papers that actually will be launching alongside the County Budget Transparency Survey, and you will be able to find available online. So legal factors, towing the line, as I call it.